With Earth's last defensive line breached, the alien fleet's approach was unimpeded. In the Orbital Command Center, heart rates rose as humanity faced the final hours of its freedom. Commander Jane Ortega stared at the approaching blips on the holographic screen, her face stern, the greenish hue of the display casting a sickly pallor on her hardened features. Her jaw clenched, her fingers tightened around the edge of the console. She was acutely aware of the dozens of eyes upon her, awaiting direction. "Status report!" she demanded, her voice echoing through the command center, a tower of steel and glass orbiting thousands of miles above their besieged home planet. Her team, a cadre of the most brilliant minds from around the globe, hastily began relaying information. "Incoming fleet at T-2 hours. Defensive shields are at 18%. Our offensive capabilities are severely limited," a young ensign reported, her voice shaking. Down on Earth, chaos was the order of the day. Riots had broken out in major cities, a desperate scramble for resources and safety. Yet, amidst this chaos, there were pockets of resistance and resilience. Liam, a teenager with a passion for theoretical physics, sat huddled in his basement, his eyes glued to a battered laptop screen. His fingers danced over the keys as he worked on an algorithm, hoping to crack the code embedded within an ancient artifact, the last hope for humanity. Simultaneously, a repentant criminal, Ren, was seeking redemption. With the prison doors flung open amidst the turmoil, he could have escaped, but he chose instead to help, using his strength to aid the beleaguered medical teams and peacekeeping forces in the city. The world leaders, knowing their impending fate, convened for one last summit. Among them, President Amina stood out. Her calm demeanor, despite the looming catastrophe, inspired and united the panic-stricken leaders. As the minutes trickled down to the alien fleet's arrival, a sense of finality washed over the world. Yet, in that despair, humanity found a spark of unity, courage, and indomitable spirit. The world wasn't just going to roll over and surrender, it would fight till the end. And so, they prepared for the final stand. Against the backdrop of an impending alien invasion, humans from all walks of life mustered their strengths, banded together, and faced the approaching storm. They were not soldiers, but civilians, scientists, leaders, and criminals, each one rising to the occasion, demonstrating what it truly means to be human. In the face of the greatest adversity ever faced, humanity revealed its true colors, resourceful, resilient, and above all united. Whether the battle was won or lost, one thing was clear: humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would meet their fate head-on, not with despair, but with hope and resolve, fighting for every last moment of freedom. As Earth's defensive perimeter succumbed to the alien onslaught, their path to our home was laid bare. Ahead of their armada, a vanguard of 3 sleek and agile craft arrived, having darted ahead of the main armada. In the silence of space, they bore down on Earth like predators hunting their prey. In the Orbital Command Center, Commander Ortega watched them with a predator's gaze of her own. "Shields up!" she ordered, and the station hummed as a shimmering blue barrier enshrouded it. Her next command echoed in the silence. "Weapons! Stand by!" The station's armaments bristled with anticipation, the chilling whisper of their readiness cutting through the mounting tension. "Satellites, online!" Ortega's voice resounded, and an intricate web of steel and fire woke amidst the stars. Earth's formidable line of defense, a halo of deadly satellites, awaited her orders. She pointed at the closest enemy ship on the holographic display. "Target Alpha!" A crosshair glowed around the doomed ship. "On my mark! Fire!" Brilliant lances of energy streaked from the station and its satellites, converging on the target. The enemy vessel erupted into a silent ball of fire, its remains hurtling away as space debris. "Target Beta!" Ortega's voice remained steady as she aimed for the second ship, repeating the lethal pattern. The explosion echoed its predecessor's fate. The third ship, seeing the fate of its comrades, reversed course, but not before the command "Target Gamma, Fire" sealed its fate. The last of the vanguard fell, giving humanity its first victory. Back on Earth, in the depths of his basement apartment, Liam made a discovery that could change everything. His hands trembling with excitement and fear, he packed the ancient artifact and his laptop into a backpack. There was no time to waste. He had to reach the Griffith Observatory. He could get his message to the Orbital Command Center from there. Emerging onto the chaotic streets of LA, the reality of his mission hit him. He was jostled by terrified civilians and opportunistic looters. Amongst them, two menacing figures singled him out, cornering him in an alley and demanding his bag. Just as the situation was escalating, Ren happened upon them. On his way to assist a medical team, he noticed the scuffle. He heard the boys' desperate pleas about an alien artifact, about a message that could end the invasion. The brutes laughed it off, one of them sneering, "Looks like the kid's been watching too much sci-fi." The other reached for the bag again. "Maybe we should take a look at this alien artifact." But Ren intervened, stepping forward, his towering figure casting a shadow over the thieves. "I'd reconsider that if I were you," he growled, his voice low but threatening. The thugs, taking in Ren's imposing presence, decided that discretion was the better part of valor and backed off, disappearing into the chaos. Breathing heavily, Liam looked up at his savior. "Thank you," he stuttered, then added quickly, "I need to get to the observatory. I can stop this." Ren surveyed the panic around them, then glanced back at the young man. He took a moment, a gruff sigh escaping him. "Well, we'd better get moving then, kid." Ren and Liam, strangers thrown together by chance and bound by a shared mission, hurried down the eerie, abandoned streets of Los Angeles. In the distance, the Griffith Observatory perched atop Mount Hollywood, its usually vibrant dome now ominous and foreboding against the backdrop of the impending invasion. They had one destination, one hope: to communicate Liam's discovery to the Orbital Command Center and potentially turn the tide of this otherworldly assault. As they navigated the city's twisted alleys, avoiding hotspots of frantic rioting and chaos, the two men traded stories in between panting breaths, learning more about each other and the divergent paths that had led them to this moment. Liam, normally shy and socially awkward, shared about his life in the shadows of his brilliant scientist father. As a child, he had always been fascinated by his father's research and eventually followed in his footsteps, becoming a prodigy in his own right. When the global crisis erupted, his father entrusted him with the enigmatic artifact, knowing that if anyone could decipher its secrets, it would be Liam. His father had then disappeared, heading to a secret outpost with a team of other scientists to develop a plan of attack against the alien armada. Ren listened intently, his eyes never straying from their surroundings, his hand resting instinctively on the pistol strapped to his side. When it was his turn to share, he began with a heavy sigh, a world of regret captured in that single exhale. "I was Special Forces once, Captain Renard Wren Morrison," he began, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I had a team, good men and women, all ready to lay their lives on the line for each other." A painful memory flickered across his face, the shadows seeming to deepen in his eyes. "Until a training exercise went wrong. Friendly fire, they called it." He paused, swallowing hard, his gaze on the deserted road ahead. "I should have checked. I should have known better. But I didn't. And because of that, one of my team, a good man, was killed. I took the fall, went to prison. When the riots broke out, they let some of us go. Figured we had better chances out here than locked up." Silence fell between them, filled only by their heavy breaths and the distant echoes of the chaotic city. Liam felt a pang of sympathy for the gruff soldier. "I'm sorry, Ren. That's a heavy burden to carry." Ren simply nodded, his gaze fixed ahead. His past was a scar, a constant reminder of a mistake that cost a life. But today, in the middle of an alien invasion, he saw a chance for redemption. Their confessions hung in the air as they continued their journey. An old, battered car sat abandoned on a side street, a potential ticket to their destination. "Come on," Ren gestured to the car, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I know how to jumpstart this old model, a trick from my misspent youth." As Ren went to work on the car, Liam looked up at the ominous sky, praying they would reach the observatory in time. Their lives, their pasts, their regrets, they all led to this moment. The future of humanity hinged on their actions, and time was running out. The battle in orbit. Back in the Orbital Command Center, Commander Ortega watched the screens in a state of heightened alert. her palms sweaty despite the controlled climate of the command room. An armada of alien ships loomed on the edge of their defense perimeter. Earth's initial success against the three advanced ships had been exhilarating, but it had come at a cost. Damage reports flashed on the screens, a stark reminder of their frailty in this interstellar warfare. Suddenly, the silence of space was shattered as another wave of smaller alien ships emerged from the main armada, their movements swift and coordinated. They launched a surprise attack on the command center, their powerful weaponry ripping through the station's defenses. Ortega could feel the impact of each hit as it vibrated through the command center's hull. "Shields up! Redirect power to the damaged sectors!" she barked, her eyes fixed on the screens as she maneuvered the station to counter the sudden onslaught. Down on Earth, a volley of weapons arced down from the sky, their targets unseen until they collided with their destination. A collective gasp echoed across the command center as the city of New York was hit, skyscrapers crumbling as fire and smoke filled the sky. The city was plunged into chaos, with countless casualties and an untold amount of damage. As Ortega and her crew desperately fought to hold their position, an urgent communication from Earth broke through the chaos. President Amina's voice sounded tinny but resolute through the speakers. "Commander Ortega, we have 10 repaired and operational 302 space fighters ready for launch. General Davidson is leading the operation. They will join you shortly." Ortega nodded, pressing a button to activate the reply channel. "Acknowledged, Madam President. We could use the reinforcements." There was a pause, then she added, "Keep the faith, Madam President. We're not done yet." President Amina's voice hardened with determination. "We're all with you, Ortega. Humanity will prevail." The line went dead, leaving Ortega to focus on the screens flashing with the trajectories of the new reinforcements. Their arrival was not a moment too soon. The command center was damaged, but not defeated. They had won this round, but at a great cost. As the last enemy ship was destroyed, a momentary calm settled over the command center. Ortega looked around at her crew, their faces grim but determined. They were the last line of defense, and they were ready to fight until the end. While Ren worked on the car, Liam's mind wandered back to the artifact and the knowledge it held. His father had always talked about its importance, but Liam hadn't truly understood until now. If his father was right, if he was right, this could change everything. As Ren finally managed to start the car, they both jumped inside. The journey to the observatory was fraught with danger. Roads were blocked, and people ran amok, forming barricades and protection groups in their neighborhoods. Ren maneuvered the old car with an expert hand, avoiding debris and people alike as they navigated the city streets. At one point, a group of rioters tried to stop them, their faces hidden behind makeshift masks. Ren accelerated, causing them to scatter and narrowly avoiding a collision. The city was falling apart at its seams, and all they could do was try to hold on and push forward. While Ren navigated the treacherous city streets, Liam found the time to delve deeper into the intricacies of his father's research and his own discovery. His eyes glowed with a mix of fear and excitement as he spoke, a stark contrast to the turmoil unfurling outside. "My father was working on this artifact in secret for years," he began, his gaze fixed on the device nestled safely within his bag. He believed he knew it was more than just a relic. It was a beacon of potential. Liam carefully pulled out his laptop, the screen glowing eerily in the dim light of the car. On it was a series of complex diagrams and codes, a digital labyrinth only he could navigate. "I've spent the past few weeks decoding its purpose," Liam continued, glancing at Ren. "It's a communication and control device like nothing we've ever seen." His fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up his meticulously crafted algorithm, an orchestra of numbers and symbols that held the key to their survival. "I've managed to create an algorithm," he explained, his voice barely audible above the roar of the car's engine and the outside chaos. "A sequence of commands, if you will. If we can connect it to a powerful enough transmitter, I believe we can communicate with the alien fleet, maybe even control their ships." Ren's grip on the steering wheel tightened as the weight of Liam's words sunk in. He stole a glance at the young scientist, his gaze filled with newfound respect. "That's our ticket, then," he said, determination coloring his voice. "We better make sure you and that algorithm get to the observatory for everyone's sake." Their journey through the city was a testament to human desperation and fear in the face of the unknown. But within the chaos, there were also glimpses of courage and resilience. People were standing together, helping each other, trying to make sense of the madness. It was a cruel reminder of what they were fighting for, what they stood to lose. As they drove on, they couldn't help but notice the eerie glow in the sky, a chilling harbinger of the alien armada's approach. It served as a constant reminder of the threat looming over them, propelling them onwards. The city that they knew was being torn apart, yet life was still clinging on. Through the pandemonium, they continued their journey, each driven by a determination to protect their home, their world. The road ahead was uncertain, but they knew they had to push forward for humanity's sake. In the cold, gray, early morning light, 10302 space fighters rocketed into the sky from the Nevada launch site. The sleek, powerful jets streaked across the sky, leaving thin, wispy trails in their wake as they ascended towards the command station. Within the lead 302, General Davidson tightened his grip on the controls, his eyes flickering over the numerous displays and dials. The radio in his ear buzzed to life. "Formation Alpha, prepare for orbital ascent," came the voice of Mission Control. With a steady hand and a determined heart, Davidson guided his 302 upward, his squadron falling into formation behind him. As they ascended, the Earth fell away beneath them, the blue and green expanse growing smaller with each passing moment. Looking out the side of the cockpit, Davidson's gaze fell upon the devastation wreaked upon New York. The fiery remnants of what was once a bustling city filled his view, the destruction stark against the otherwise serene landscape of the Earth. A tight knot formed in his stomach, his grip on the controls tightening. The sight only further fueled his resolve. He wouldn't let Earth suffer any more than it already had. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but he would be damned if they weren't outfought. "Commander Ortega," he spoke into the radio, his voice steady. "The 302s are airborne and en route. We'll be at your coordinates in 10. A small sigh echoed over the radio, a hint of relief in Ortega's voice as she responded. "Good to hear, General. We're going to need every fighter we can get." As they climbed higher, the atmosphere thinning and the stars growing brighter, Davidson couldn't help but wish for more firepower. If only they had 1,000 fighters, 100,000. But wishes didn't win wars. Courage did. Resolve did. And they had plenty of that. Minutes later, the squadron arrived at the Orbital Command Center. The massive station loomed ahead, an imposing structure against the inky void of space. Even from this distance, the damage from the earlier skirmish was evident. Scorch marks marring the station's surface, debris floating listlessly around it. "Welcome to the front line," Ortega's voice crackled over the radio as they approached the station. Her voice held an edge of steel, a clear indication of the battle that lay ahead. "Take up defensive positions. Our visitors won't be long now." As the radio fell silent, Davidson looked out into the vast emptiness of space. Somewhere out there, beyond the veil of darkness, the enemy was coming. Their numbers might be few, but their spirits were mighty. "Copy that, Commander," Davidson replied, guiding his 302 into position. As the rest of the squadron fell into formation around the station, a sense of grim determination settled over them. The alien armada was coming, and Earth was ready to greet them. If you like this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for the next part. The eerie silence of space was broken only by the routine reports from the squadron of 302 fighters that now surrounded the Orbital Command Center. Each ship was a marvel of Earth's technological prowess, a physical embodiment of humanity's stubborn refusal to yield. Against the chilling backdrop of the stars, their thrusters cast a blue glow, soft and ethereal, a stark contrast to the high-stakes scenario unfolding. General Davidson, at the helm of the lead 302, his heart a constant drum against his ribs, surveyed the scene. They were vastly outnumbered, but he didn't need 1,000 fighters to stand his ground. He merely needed 10 good pilots and a reason to fight. For Davidson, the reason had always been clear. Earth, their home. "Echo 1, we have movement," the calm voice of Echo 2 reported over the comms, breaking Davidson's thoughts. Echo 2, real name Melissa Harper, was an exceptional pilot. 2 more smaller alien ships had broken from the main armada, like hawks, fast and sleek, coming in hot. Echo Squad, engage, Davidson ordered, his voice steady despite the sudden dryness of his throat. The response was immediate. 10 voices in unison, a symphony of dedication and discipline. Roger that, Echo 1! The battle was swift but intense. Alien weapons sliced through space, beams of energy illuminating the void. But the 302s were agile, dodging with near impossible maneuvers, retaliating with an intensity that could have ignited the vacuum itself. Davidson took down one of the alien ships himself. The other was a joint effort from Echo 2 and Echo 5. Throughout it all, Commander Ortega watched from the command center. She observed the battle, taking in every maneuver, every decision. In front of her, the holographic display played out the ballet of destruction. Each explosion a silent but bright testament to the 302's prowess and the strength of Earth's defenders. Echo 1, this is Olympus, she finally said over the comlink once the remaining alien ships were destroyed. Her voice bore the weight of command, the responsibility of a world. Impressive work. Continue holding positions. The line was silent for a moment, and then came Davidson's voice, crackling with static and determination. Understood, Olympus. Echo Squad holding position. We're ready for whatever comes next. And on the other end of the line, high above the Earth, in the silent expanse of space, Ortega found herself hoping, with a fierce desperation, that the general was right, because their survival depended on being ready for whatever the enemy had to throw at them. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ren and Liam navigated the dilapidated cityscape in their stolen car. The silence that had initially greeted their venture was steadily being replaced by the cacophony of chaos, which grew louder and more frantic with every passing minute. The city had turned into a battlefield, not for human versus alien, but human against human. In the streets, fires blazed, storefronts were shattered, and people rioted in a frenzy of fear and desperation. The armada's looming arrival had driven the city to madness. Their journey came to an abrupt halt as they rounded a corner and were met by a makeshift barricade. It was manned by a ragtag group of civilians, brandishing whatever weapons they could get their hands on. Liam and Ren exchanged a look. There was no reasoning with people in this state. They'd have to go the rest of the way on foot. Liam's gaze flitted between the observatory perched atop the hill in the distance and the mob before them. Let's ditch the car, Ren suggested, his voice barely audible over the roar of the crowd and the revving engine. Sounds like a plan, Liam agreed, and they made their move, slipping out of the vehicle and disappearing into the chaotic fray of the city. Their journey through the city was arduous. Once vibrant neighborhoods were now crumbling under the onslaught of humanity's fear, but they pressed on, avoiding the groups of people whenever possible. The observatory was in sight now, its domed silhouette etched against the skyline. With every step they took, the blue hue overhead seemed to grow stronger, pulsing like a heartbeat. The countdown was ticking, time was running out. As they approached the observatory, they found it barricaded, locked up tighter than a fortress. But Ren had a solution. Years of special ops training had taught him to be resourceful, and the adrenaline coursing through his veins only sharpened his instincts. He scanned the building, spotted a vulnerable point, and, in one swift move, broke through. Once inside, they wasted no time. The interior of the observatory was a maze, but they navigated it with a single-minded determination. The radio room was their target, their last hope. After what seemed like an eternity, they found it. Ren gave the door one hard kick, and it flew open with a loud crash. They had made it. This was it. Their ticket to reaching the command center, the radio room, their chance to turn the tide. Meanwhile, the command center was in disarray. They had received a garbled message from the alien armada, and teams of linguists and cryptographers were working frantically to decode it. The message was short and concise, once translated. Surrender within 60 Earth minutes or face annihilation. Commander Ortega read the message once more, her mind racing. It was a non-negotiable demand. But Earth did not yield easily, and she had no plans to start now. The command center fell into a tense silence, interrupted only by the occasional whisper of conversation and the low hum of machinery. Everyone was awaiting her orders, their expressions a mix of fear and determination. Ortega turned her gaze back to the stars, her heart pounding with a newfound determination. They would not surrender. They would fight. The Griffith Observatory's radio room was as dusty as it was ancient. Mankind's relic of past curiosity stood in stark contrast to the high-tech alien artifact in Liam's hands. But the differences in technology, vast as they were, would need to merge if there was any hope left for Earth. The interior was a maze of old-fashioned switches and dials, long-abandoned wires, and heaps of antiquated equipment. Not exactly the state-of-the-art environment Liam was accustomed to, but it would have to suffice. Wren was by his side, his usual military poise seeming out of place amid the clutter of outdated tech. "What do we need to do?" he asked. "We have to connect the artifact to the transmitter," Liam explained, his hands running over the machinery with a mixture of caution and familiarity. Wren, ever the practical soldier, simply nodded and lent a hand where he could. He was no tech genius, but he could follow orders. He trusted in Liam's expertise and intellect, just as Liam was trusting in him to keep them safe. Meanwhile, back in the Orbital Command Center, Commander Ortega was growing anxious. The blue hue in the sky had been growing brighter and brighter, and their time was running out. She was about to order another wave of attacks when the control room's speakers crackled with static. Then, a voice came through. "This is Liam! We're at the Observatory!" it said, sounding breathless but determined. "I think I've figured out a way to stop the aliens!" Ortega's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, stop the aliens?" she demanded. As Liam explained his theory about the artifact and its possible connection to the aliens' communication network, the room fell silent. It sounded far-fetched, fantastical even, but they had seen enough to know that the impossible was becoming possible. Ortega mulled over the information. "We're ready to test it now," Liam's voice echoed in the command center, brimming with anticipation. "If we can harness enough power, the artifact should connect with the aliens' network." The room was tense as they listened to the sounds of shuffling and muttered instructions from Liam and Wren. Ortega's palms were sweaty as she gripped her armrest, her heart pounding with nervous anticipation. The rest of the crew leaned in, their eyes wide and hopeful. It was a long shot, but it was their best shot. Then, just as the excitement was peaking, Liam's voice came over the speakers again, filled with frustration. "Damn it! The power's out!" The news hit the room like a punch in the gut. Groans of disappointment and apprehension filled the air as the reality of their dire situation settled once again. "Stay put, we'll figure this out," Ortega responded, trying to keep the rising panic from her voice. She turned to her crew, her eyes hardened with resolve. "We need to buy them more time. Prepare for another wave of attack." As the room buzzed back into action, Ortega couldn't help but wonder if their efforts would be enough. Would Liam and Wren get the power back up in time? Would the artifact work as Liam hoped? The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and all they could do was wait, hope, and fight. The end of the chapter left them on a knife's edge, the tension palpable as the clock ticked closer to the aliens' deadline. Desperate to restore power, Wren left Liam in the radio room and headed for the observatory's generator. His military training had prepared him for all manner of critical situations, but fixing power outages in the midst of an alien invasion wasn't one of them. Yet, like the soldier he was, he soldiered on. Minutes felt like hours as he wrangled with cables and circuits in the dimly lit generator room. But despite his best efforts, the power remained elusive. They were running out of time. Back in the Orbital Command Center, Ortega was embroiled in a fierce discussion with her command crew and General Davidson. They'd heard Liam's distress call about the power outage and knew that time was of the essence. "Commander, we've lost power at the observatory." Liam's static-filled voice crackled through the comm link, a sense of urgency underpinning his words. "We need another powerful transmitter." Ortega's brow furrowed in thought as she looked around at her team, their faces etched with a mix of worry and determination. "Ideas?" she asked, her voice echoing through the command center. General Davidson, a hardened veteran with a stern, square-jawed face, stepped forward. "Commander, do we have a powerful enough transmitter and enough power to use it?" "We do," Ortega replied, her mind already piecing together the general's plan. "But it's here, on the station." "Then I'm going down to get the boy," Davidson declared, his tone leaving no room for debate. "It's a 15-minute round trip. My 302 squadron can hold the line." Ortega hesitated, weighing the risks. Every second counted, and Davidson's plan was a gamble. But they were out of options. She gave a nod of approval and opened the comm link again. "Hold tight, Liam. Davidson's on his way." The general radioed his squadron, his voice filled with commanding resolve. "Hold the line, pilots. Repel any alien attack. I'm going to get our secret weapon." Davidson's fighter rocketed away from the station, en route to Earth. Minutes turned into an agonizing eternity. The command center's clock ticked down the alien's deadline, and as it hit zero, the sky illuminated with an eerie azure glow. Ortega's heart pounded in her chest as the alien armada began their assault. Lights flickered and alarms blared as the first wave of attacks hit the station. She gripped her chair, her knuckles white, and forced herself to focus. "Defensive formations now! Defense satellites online!" she barked. "Be ready! They're coming!" Her orders echoing in the cockpit of every 302 and with every member of the command ship. They watched as the alien armada draw closer, the overwhelming odds laying heavily upon them. Davidson's descent. Davidson rocketed through the void, his 302 spacefighter rapidly descending towards Earth. The blue and green jewel of their home planet was a welcome sight, but Davidson had no time to appreciate its beauty. His heart pounded in his chest, and he could hear his pulse thundering in his ears. He had a mission, and it was one he could not fail. Behind him, the black void of space lit up in bright flashes of light, a hauntingly beautiful but terrifyingly deadly light show. The alien armada had started their assault on the command station. Their relentless advance had commenced, and now the fate of humanity was a race against time. Davidson's focus remained steadfast as he hurtled towards Earth. His primary concern was his rapidly depleting time, but a secondary problem quickly became evident. His communication console flickered to life, a tracking alert blaring through his headset. An alien ship had broken away from the main fleet and was now in hot pursuit. "Damn it," he muttered, gripping the control stick tighter. This was the last thing he needed. He glanced at the display, noting the alien craft's speed and trajectory. They were faster than he'd anticipated, and if his suspicion was correct, they'd somehow intercepted his communication with the command center. Twisting the control stick, Davidson initiated a series of evasive maneuvers, spinning his 302 through the incoming waves of fire. The alien ship was relentless, maintaining its pursuit despite Davidson's efforts to shake it. Davidson gritted his teeth, pulling his ship into a sharp dive as the first traces of Earth's atmosphere began to brush against the 302's hull. He could see the continent's outlines beneath him, and somewhere below was Liam and the artifact. But he had to deal with his tail first. The alien ship was unyielding, mimicking Davidson's maneuvers and maintaining its pursuit. Davidson's mind raced, rapidly calculating possible maneuvers, each more daring and dangerous than the last. He needed to buy himself some time, and there was only one way he could think of. With a final glance at his tracking monitor, Davidson made his decision. He pulled the 302 into a hard roll, turning his ship around to face his pursuer. The alien ship, taken by surprise, didn't have time to evade as Davidson's finger squeezed the trigger of his mini railgun. The railgun roared to life, a streak of blazing light shooting out from the 302. The projectile hit the alien ship, causing it to explode in a bright flash of light. The shockwave shook Davidson's 302, but he managed to steady it, spinning the ship back around and igniting the thrusters. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he took a deep breath. One obstacle down, and the main task was still to go. He refocused, his gaze locking onto the coordinates of the Griffith Observatory. Now, nothing stood between him and Liam. As he hurtled through the Earth's atmosphere, Davidson's only thought was to get to Liam in time. They were running out of it, and every second counted. As his 302 cut through the clouds, the chaos on the ground came into view. Davidson's heart clenched at the sight. Fires raged across the cityscape, columns of smoke climbing into the sky, reflecting the eerie blue glow from above. But he couldn't afford to get distracted. He had a mission, and he was Earth's only hope. With a final burst of speed, Davidson sped towards the observatory, determined to retrieve the artifact and save their world. Their future depended on it. Holding the line. While General Davidson embarked on his daring descent towards Earth, the scene in orbit was a vortex of chaos and courage. The command station, a beacon of human ingenuity in the void of space, held its ground against the looming menace of the alien armada. The station's bright lights and reflective solar panels stood stark against the ominous backdrop of the advancing alien fleet. Yet the presence of these foreign entities did little to weaken the resolve of humanity's finest. Commander Ortega, eyes steely and voice steady, coordinated the station's defensive measures. On her command, an array of powerful energy weapons, along with the satellite defense systems, hummed to life, beams of searing light streaking towards the encroaching alien vessels. Simultaneously, the squadron of 302 spacefighters, like hornets defending their hive, moved into formation. The buzzing hum of their engines filled the communication channels as pilots relayed their positions and prepared for the imminent clash. "Echo 3 and 4, take the flanks," Ortega commanded over the comms. "Echo 2, you're on point. Echo 5 and 6, cover their 6. We hold them here." If you like this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for the next part. The pilots' acknowledgments were crisp and immediate, their faces a mixture of fear, determination, and hope. They were warriors, their spirits unbroken by the enormity of their task. As their 302 soared into the expanse, their objective was singular: hold the line. In the heart of the fray, the 302 danced. Their pilots, each a master of their craft, moved with precision and intent. Every strafe, every barrel roll, every feint and maneuver was a testament to their skill and courage. Bursts of brilliant light exploded in the void as human and alien technology clashed. Each hit on an enemy vessel was a tiny victory, an affirmation of the resilience of their species. But each loss, marked by a gut-wrenching burst of fire and debris, was a harsh reminder of the steep price they were willing to pay. Ortega, watching the live feeds from the command center, felt the weight of each loss. But there was no room for grief, not yet. She continued to orchestrate their defenses, her voice steady, her orders unwavering. Back in the fray, the 302 pilots were fighting valiantly. Their maneuvers were sharp, their shots accurate. The alien attackers were formidable, their technology alien and efficient, but the humans had something that the aliens didn't: a home to defend, and the resolve that came with it. Yet even amidst this chaos, there was an awareness that this was only the beginning. As the alien armada continued to slowly advance, the ominous sense of a more significant conflict loomed. With each passing moment, their defenses were being tested, their limits pushed. The ticking clock was a constant reminder. Davidson needed to return with Liam and the artifact before their defenses crumbled. As another wave of alien attackers surged towards them, Ortega's voice echoed in the comms. "Hold the line, people! Every second counts! We stand here! We fight here!" In the void of space, humanity's hope was a flurry of starlit battles. But even as the odds seemed insurmountable, they held on, ready to fight until their last breath for their home, for their species. After all, they were humanity's last line of defense. Confrontation at the Observatory. Meanwhile, at the Griffith Observatory, Liam and Wren had little idea of the aerial duel unfolding above them. Having relayed their location to Ortega, they had been instructed to wait for Davidson's arrival. The surrounding cityscape was an eerie tableau of destruction and despair, awash in the peculiar blue hue from the menacing alien armada above. Their footsteps echoed hauntingly as they made their way to the observatory's entrance, a path that was unexpectedly blocked by a group of unkempt and desperate-looking survivors. "Hand over your bags!" one of them, a grizzled man with a scarred face and hardened eyes, demanded, gesturing menacingly with a makeshift club. Others in the group brandished their own crude weapons, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and desperation. Wren instinctively stepped forward, shielding Liam. A hulking figure compared to the slighter Liam, Wren's marine training kicked in, assessing the situation rapidly. "Listen, we don't have time for this," he said, his voice hard but not unkind. "We're on a mission that could save us all." His words were met with skeptical sneers and laughter. "Save us all?" the scarred man mocked. "Sounds like a fairy tale. You're hiding something valuable in that bag and we want it." As the standoff continued, a crackling voice came over Liam's radio. It was Ortega, her voice filled with urgency. "Liam, Davidson is minutes away. Be ready to move." Liam, his heart pounding, relayed the message to Wren, whose eyes flickered with understanding. "You heard that," he said, addressing the crowd. "Our ride is almost here. We're leaving whether you like it or not." The crowd exchanged nervous glances, clearly unsure. It was then that a deafening roar echoed through the sky, followed by a streak of light. The crowd fell silent, their hostile postures momentarily forgotten as they looked up in awe at the sight of the lone 302 fighter, its thrusters aglow with fierce intensity. Davidson brought the 302 down smoothly, landing it just a few feet from the standoff. The hatch opened and Davidson's voice rang out, filled with urgency. "Liam, get over here! We need to move! Now!" As Davidson's voice echoed across the field, Liam darted forward, Wren hot on his heels. Seeing the two rush towards the landed space fighter, the crowd seemed to snap out of their stunned silence, a few of them raising their weapons again, but it was too late. "Wren's coming with me!" Liam called back over his shoulder, to which Davidson grunted in response. "Fine, but it's going to be a tight squeeze." As the pair clambered into the 302, Davidson quickly sealed the hatch. The crowd was left watching in stunned silence as the 302's engines roared to life, the fighter lifting off and disappearing into the blue-lit sky. Their cheers followed the retreating craft, the spectacle having shifted their focus from their desperate circumstances, if only for a moment. Liam, Wren, and Davidson were now on a race against time, their mission to save humanity becoming increasingly dire. As the solitary 302, carrying Davidson, Liam, and Wren, arced into the vast black canvas of space, the battle outside the orbital command station was reaching a fever pitch. Echo 2 had been cornered by a group of alien fighters. The valiant pilot managed to take down 2 before succumbing to a direct hit, his fighter vaporizing into a fireball that punctuated the blackness with an ominous red glare. Ortega's voice was a steely thread weaving through the chaos. "Echo 5, Echo 6, fill in for Echo 2 now!" Her words echoed in the cockpit, urgent and commanding. The 302s danced in the void, streaking across the vast darkness, their maneuvers a deadly ballet in the face of the alien onslaught. The defenders were being tested to their limits as more alien vessels emerged from the ominous armada, swooping in to join the fray with eerie coordination. The station's automated defenses, an array of satellite platforms armed with kinetic bombardment weaponry, lit up the void with devastating attacks. Like celestial archers, they launched energy projectiles that traced brilliant arcs through space, homing in on the alien vessels. Each impact sent a shudder through the station, the vibrations rippling through the consoles and along the floor. But for every alien craft that was taken out, it seemed 2 more swooped in to take its place. The relentless alien advance was slowly but steadily pushing back the defensive line. Several of the defense satellites were already smoldering ruins. One by one, their lights were snuffed out, their protective capabilities diminishing. Ortega watched as another of the station's first lines of defense blinked out on her screen. "Echo 7, 8, cover the left flank. The satellites are down," she ordered, her fingers dancing across her control panel as she coordinated the defense. Her voice betrayed none of the fear she felt, but her heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. She cast a quick glance at the radar, her eyes tracing the tiny dot that was Davidson's 302, en route with Liam back towards the station. As another warning light flashed on her console, Ortega couldn't help but feel a cold knot of dread in her stomach. She muttered under her breath, "Hurry, Davidson." The situation was deteriorating fast. The thin line of defense was at its breaking point. Ortega's eyes flitted between her console and the vast space battle outside her window. The echo of her final order rang in the command center, her voice carrying a note of desperation that was uncharacteristic but necessary given the dire circumstances. Time was a luxury they no longer had. If Davidson didn't get back soon, it might be too late. If you're new here to The Last Stand, check out the playlist on my YouTube channel for the previous episodes. As the thrusters of Davidson's 302 rumbled, he gritted his teeth, gripping the controls tightly. His eyes darted between the HUD displaying the flight path back to the command center and his comm unit, blaring updates about the battle taking place above Earth's atmosphere. Through his radio, he could hear the frantic commands and adrenaline-driven responses of his squadron, the sound of their unity like a drumbeat amidst the cacophony of battle. Echo 5, pull up! You've got 4 bogies on your tail!" came a shout. Davidson's heart clenched as the realization hit him. Another one of his squad, pursued by a quartet of alien fighters. An unbearable moment of silence passed before a static-filled voice came through, cut short by an ear-splitting explosion that shook the radio frequencies.
Echo 5 is down, repeat, Echo 5 is down.
The words hung heavy in the cockpit, reverberating in the silence that followed. It was the second 302 they had lost. An incandescent anger flared within Davidson, but he forced it down, focusing on the task at hand. The best way he could honor his fallen team members was to complete his mission and end this. Ortega, this is Echo 1, ETA 2 minutes. We'll be coming in hot. Prepare Shuttle Bay 1 for quick drop-off.
Acknowledged, Echo 1. Shuttle Bay 1 will be ready,
came Ortega's response. Even through the static of the radio, her voice echoed a shared determination. They were all too aware of what was at stake. The sight of the Orbital Command Center was a mix of awe and despair as Davidson neared his destination. Its metallic hull was scarred and charred, bearing the marks of the relentless alien assault. Yet amidst the chaos, the station stood defiant, a testament to human resilience and defiance. The large bay doors of Shuttle Bay 1 began to slide open, their groaning mechanical sound a welcome signal of his successful journey. As Davidson carefully maneuvered his 302 into the bay, the doors slid shut behind him, sealing off the madness outside. The inside of the bay was a flurry of activity. Red emergency lights cast eerie shadows over the crew members rushing around. As Davidson powered down the 302, the cockpit's hatch opened with a hiss of releasing pressure, revealing Liam and Wren. They jumped down, their eyes wide as they took in the scene, visibly taken aback by the sudden shift from the calm Observatory to the center of the battle for Earth. They were no longer observers. They were part of the fight. A familiar face appeared in the crowd of rushing personnel. Ortega, her face stern but her eyes betraying a glimmer of relief at seeing them. "Follow me," she said tersely, turning on her heels and walking briskly away from the shuttle bay, Liam and Wren falling in step behind her. As the trio disappeared into the bowels of the station, Davidson strapped himself back into the cockpit. He could feel the urgency in the air, the subtle shift in the command center's atmosphere. They were in the eye of the storm, and the worst was yet to come. Even in the chaos of the Orbital Command Center, a seasoned commander like Ortega never lost her bearings. She quickly led Liam and Wren through its bustling corridors, filled with the energy of 1,000 frantic operations. The battle against the alien ships was not just happening in the expanse of space. It was happening here, inside these metallic walls, where every individual was a vital cog in the machine. They finally arrived at a room that seemed to be in utter disarray. It was a tech room filled to the brim with electronic devices, spare parts, and an ungodly amount of tools scattered everywhere. Amid the pandemonium, Ortega gestured around and stated matter-of-factly, "This is where we'll integrate your artifact." Without hesitation, Liam and Wren got to work. Wren began clearing a space amid the electronic debris, while Liam's eyes darted around, scanning for the components he needed. Despite the sheer magnitude of their task, they worked with calm efficiency, knowing that the fate of humanity was, quite literally, in their hands. As Liam and Wren worked in the tech room, Ortega had returned to the bridge. From there, she could get an immediate overview of the situation, the holographic tactical display providing her with a visual map of the battle in space. Her eyes scanned the swarm of red blips representing the alien forces, a stark contrast to the blue blip of their station. The tension thickened as Davidson's voice sounded over the comms.
Echo 1 back in the fight. Ortega, I need coordinates.
Ortega, with a new sense of urgency, gave Davidson a cluster of enemy ships to target. He acknowledged and zoomed away with Echo 2 at his wing, disappearing into the raging battle outside. Meanwhile, on the Orbital Command Station, things were rapidly deteriorating. Alien ships swarmed the station like angry hornets, their attacks causing the station to shudder violently. With each hit, a ripple of trepidation ran through the crew. Even as the chaos ensued outside, Liam was making steady progress inside the tech room. His laptop showed the complex algorithm he had written, a mess of numbers and symbols that only he could understand. The lines of codes were loading, and the artifact was almost ready to be integrated with the station's transmission system. Ortega, on the bridge, watched as the swarm of red blips grew on the tactical display. The station was taking a beating, and the 302s were fighting with all they had. But it was a relentless battle, and they were running out of time. In a desperate attempt to stall the aliens, she ordered another wave of defensive measures from the satellite defense system, praying it would buy them more time. But as another alarm blared, indicating the loss of another 302, Ortega clenched her fists, her frustration mounting. Her attention shifted back to the tech room as she remembered the crucial task at hand. She opened the intercom, her voice ringing through the chaos. "Liam, we need that artifact online now!" And so, with each second that passed, the pressure mounted. As Liam hurried to set up the artifact, Davidson flew back into the fight, and Ortega did her best to hold the line against the alien invasion. The clock was ticking, and every second brought them closer to their last stand. An eerie silence blanketed the bridge as a massive ship emerged behind the alien armada. It was like nothing they had seen before. A cold shiver went down Ortega's spine as she witnessed the colossal structure opening up, revealing a massive photon cannon. The station's sensors immediately picked up a rapid power buildup within the alien mothership.
What is that?
Davidson's voice crackled over the comms, his disbelief evident in his tone. "A problem," Ortega responded grimly, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. Back in the tech room, Liam was fervently working to make the final connections, the artifact humming with power in front of him. Ortega's voice echoed around him. "Liam, we need more speed. The mothership is doing something, and it doesn't look good." "I'm almost there," Liam replied, his voice strained. "I just need 2 more minutes." Meanwhile, Davidson, realizing the impending threat of the mothership's cannon, made a split-second decision. He opened his comms.
Echo 2, stay on my 6. We're making a run at the mothership.
His 302 accelerated, slicing through the chaos of the battlefield towards the behemoth ship. His wingman, Echo 2, stayed in close formation, their movements synchronized as they twisted and turned, evading the swarms of alien fighters that lunged at them. Ortega watched in growing concern as Davidson charged towards the mothership, aware of the extreme risks he was taking. But there was no time for second-guessing. Everything hinged on their next moves. As if sensing the danger of the artifact, the alien fighters ramped up their onslaught. Their attacks were relentless, pounding the station without mercy. Alarms blared incessantly around Ortega, each one signifying another hit, another system failing. She winced as the bridge shuddered under another hit. Her gaze snapped to the tactical display, watching as Davidson and Echo 2 closed the distance towards the mothership. It was a desperate race against time, a last-ditch effort to protect their home. On the comms, Davidson's voice was calm yet resolute.
Ortega, if we can't destroy that cannon, I'm using my ship. Get ready.
Ortega's heart clenched at his words. She knew what he was implying. It was a kamikaze run. But she also understood that if that cannon fired, Earth wouldn't stand a chance. In the tech room, Liam's hands flew over the artifact, the final connections snapping into place. His algorithm was almost loaded, ready to broadcast the signal. The artifact hummed, radiating a soft glow that filled the room. Back on the bridge, Ortega watched, heart pounding as Davidson closed in on the mothership. "Come on, Liam," she murmured under her breath. "We need a miracle." And just then, as if on cue, something strange happened. The fierce attack from the alien ships intensified even further. It was as if they could sense the impending activation of the artifact. The station rattled under the force of their onslaught, making Ortega's heart pound with anxiety. She glanced back at the display, watching as Davidson closed in on the mothership. His voice filled her ears.
Ortega, we're in position. Liam, we need that signal now.
With everything hanging by a thread, they were at the precipice of hope and destruction, a moment that would define their fate. In the tech room, Liam's heart pounded in his chest. The hum of the artifact was a constant drone in his ears as he stared at his screen. The algorithm was ready. 30 seconds, he relayed over the comms. Davidson's voice came through loud and clear.
Make it count, kid.
Ortega could only hold her breath as she watched the small blip that represented Davidson's 302 nearing the massive alien mothership. The photon cannon was pulsing with light, the power buildup nearly complete. The bridge of the command center shook violently under the intensified onslaught, making it clear to her that they were running out of time. Meanwhile, Davidson and Echo 2 sped towards the mothership, their path paved with fire as they swept through the alien fighters. The sheer scale of the alien mothership loomed before him, dwarfing his 302 in comparison. As he neared the opening of the photon cannon, the fear was palpable, but so was the determination. The comms channel was open, and every soul on the orbital command center could hear the steady resolve in his voice.
Just as Liam presses the button.
Davidson's words echoed over the comms. His 302 closed in on the alien mothership, the view of the open photon cannon filling his front view screen. Back in the tech room, Liam was keyed up, his finger hovering over the activation button. All the moments leading up to this flashed in his mind. The artifact hummed louder, its energy rippling in the air. "Here goes nothing," he murmured, pressing the button. As soon as he did, an eerie phenomenon took over. Time seemed to elongate, stretching into infinity. The rush of adrenaline slowed, the intensity of the moment amplified in the uncanny stillness. Around him, Ren was caught mid-motion, his eyes wide in astonishment. On the bridge, Ortega felt as if the world had shifted. The alarms blared slower, the warning lights flashed lazily. Her heartbeat seemed to echo in her ears as she turned to see the view screen. Davidson's 302, once rushing towards the mothership, now moved as if through a dense, invisible medium. Davidson felt his senses slow down. His heartbeat, once frenzied, now pounded with a slow, echoing rhythm. The mothership, the open maw of the photon cannon, everything was motionless, as if frozen in a snapshot. Over the comms, his own voice, distorted and stretched thin, filled the silence. "Just as Liam presses the button." Then a low hum filled the tech room, a resonance that vibrated through Liam's very bones. He turned to see the artifact beside him. Its once steady glow had transformed into a pulsating radiance. A strange, ethereal energy seemed to ripple out from it, filling the room, as if charging the very air around them. It was alien, it was powerful, and at that moment, it was their only hope. Their hearts pounded in the extended silence, each second ticking by like an hour. In the bizarre dance of stretched time, they waited, their fates intertwined with the artifact's power and Liam's algorithm. The alien mothership stood before them, the photon cannon ready to unleash destruction. In the paused tapestry of time, they stood at the brink of their destiny, their last stand against the invading force. All they could do now was wait and hope. If you're new to this story, The Final Stand, check out the playlist in the description and start from part 1. Enjoy! With the activation of the artifact, everything in the orbital command station appeared frozen, an uncanny stillness permeating the very air. Only Liam remained mobile within the surreal suspension of time. Disoriented at first, he gradually managed to regain his senses. As he looked around, he realized he was the only one unaffected, the only one moving in this suspended reality. Feeling a strange sense of power, he experimented with the time dilation effect, making his way to the command station window. Outside, the ferocious space battle was motionless, a myriad of alien ships and debris caught in an eerily peaceful tableau. He looked down at his laptop, its algorithm enabling his sudden control over time. With a few modifications, Liam managed to extend the time field to include Ren. The older man jerked as he suddenly found himself capable of movement. "What in blazes?" he began, but then his gaze fell upon the glowing artifact, and his words trailed off. "Liam, did you do this?" "I think so," Liam admitted. "I think I can control it, Ren." Ren watched in open-mouthed awe as Liam started to exercise the powers of the artifact. With a focused gaze and controlled movements, the young engineer selectively lifted the temporal suspension on objects around them. A pen resumed its fall to the floor, a teacup spun once again, and a piece of tech equipment resumed its blipping, the room filled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "The power!" Ren breathed, his eyes wide. "You could change everything, Liam." "I hope so," Liam said, his voice sober. This newfound power wasn't for play. It was a lifeline, their only hope against the relentless alien attack. He looked to the command station again, and on impulse expanded the artifact's effect to include Ortega. He needed his commander, needed her strategic mind and fearless leadership to guide them through this unfathomable situation. He felt the energy ripple out from the artifact, reaching out like invisible tendrils to the bridge. Ortega blinked in surprise, her eyes darting around the room, taking in the suspended figures and immobile equipment. She ran down to the tech room, her heart pounding in her chest. The sight that greeted her was one of awe and terror. Liam and Ren, standing amidst a world frozen in time with an alien artifact glowing ominously in the corner. "What the hell is going on here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Together, Liam and Ren explained what they knew and what they had accomplished. Ortega listened, her face a mix of incredulity and determination. It was clear that she saw the potential, understood the immense power that now lay in their hands. The stakes were high, but so was the payoff. With careful execution, this could turn the tide of the battle. As their discussion progressed, the name Davidson was raised. Could they lift the suspension from him, free him from the grip of frozen time? Liam, though unsure, agreed to try. He focused on Davidson's figure visible from the station window, the 302 he was piloting hanging motionlessly in the void. After several attempts, he managed to liberate Davidson alone, the 302 remaining immobile. Davidson's voice crackled over the comms, startled and confused.
Davidson to command. I can move, but my 302 is still frozen. What's happening, Ortega?
Before anyone could answer, another voice came over the comm, one Liam had never expected to hear.
Liam?
The voice said, a mix of concern and relief tinging the deep timbre.
Liam, this is your father, Michael.
The sound of Liam's father echoed through the command center, bringing a fresh wave of surprise and apprehension to the already charged atmosphere. The implications of his words were astounding, casting a shadow of governmental secrets and long-held mysteries over the situation.
I'm part of a scientific research team based in Cheyenne Mountain,
Michael's voice continued, brimming with an urgency that added weight to every word.
We've been aware of this alien threat for years. The artifact you have, Liam, we have a larger one, taken from a crashed alien ship.
The air in the tech room seemed to tighten with every revelation. Liam felt his mind whirl as he tried to process the information. A ship, shot down in the 1980s, an alien artifact, a covert government project, and his own father's involvement. It was a lot to take in. The truth that an impending invasion had been looming over them, known yet undisclosed to the majority of humankind, added a new level of significance to their present predicament. His father's voice sounded again over the comms, bringing Liam out of his stupor.
The device you have, Liam, it synchronizes with ours. We had hoped it could be our secret weapon in the event of an invasion, but we never got it to work. Somehow you did.
A silent tension hung in the room as the weight of this information settled. Liam looked at the artifact. Its pulsating light now seemed to carry an unspoken challenge. The fact that he had been able to activate it when others couldn't, it was more than a fluke. It was a sign, a calling that was starting to make sense in a convoluted way. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly fitting together, and with that realization, a surge of determination coursed through Liam. They had a chance, a fighting chance against the formidable alien invaders. It was Davidson who broke the heavy silence that had enveloped the command center. His voice came through the comms, pragmatic and incisive, cutting through the shock and surprise of Michael's revelations.
Okay, that's all great, Michael. But we're currently in the middle of a battle for Earth. Any suggestions on how to use this to our advantage?
The question hung in the air, an urgent plea for a plan amidst the chaos. Michael's voice, calm but filled with palpable urgency, responded.
The time dilation effect is temporary. It will only last a few minutes more. Do you have any tactical nukes on board?
Ortega confirmed that they did have a number of tactical nukes on board, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Michael's next words echoed eerily through the tech room, casting a bone-chilling reality into the discussion.
The aliens are vulnerable to radiation. A nuclear explosion in the mothership would sever the link, disabling their drones and stopping the cannon.
Suddenly, a plan began to crystallize in Liam's mind, as if he had been holding a fractured lens up to the situation, and now it had snapped into focus. The risks were immense, the stakes higher than ever. but it was their best chance. Liam looked to Ortega and Davidson. Their nods of agreement were all he needed to solidify his resolve. Carefully, with precision born of newfound understanding, Liam extended the artifact's influence to Davidson's 302. It was a task of intense focus, requiring a level of control that he had only begun to understand. With a surge of triumph, the ship broke free from the stasis. Its mobility restored, Davidson guided his 302 into the belly of the station, skillfully manipulating the craft's controls to land smoothly in the shuttle bay. The landing pad, bathed in the bluish hue of the bay's lights, looked like a scene from a sci-fi epic as the sleek ship settled onto it. Even in the midst of their life-or-death circumstances, the prowess of Davidson's piloting was awe-inspiring. As soon as the 302 touched down, Ortega and Wren were already on the move. With a coordinated efficiency that came from years of shared experience and deep mutual respect, they set about their grim task. They navigated the complex web of hallways and lifts to reach the secure storage, where the station's nuclear payload was kept under a combination of mechanical and digital locks. Simultaneously, Liam was left alone in the tech room, the normally bustling hub now eerily silent, save for the hum of the artifact and the rapid beating of his own heart. He watched the others through the station's internal cameras, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on him. His gaze strayed to the command station window, the tranquil scene outside belying the imminent chaos. Alien ships hung suspended in space, their deadly dance frozen in time. But Liam knew it wouldn't last. Each ticking second brought them closer to the edge, the countdown to zero a cruel symphony played by the universe. Back in the storage room, Ortega and Wren had reached the nuclear payload. With deft movements, they activated the device, their faces bathed in the harsh, unforgiving glow of its readiness lights. They moved the payload onto a motorized cart, then navigated their way back to the hangar where Davidson was waiting. With a sense of urgency that underscored the ticking clock, they loaded the armed nuke onto the 302. Davidson watched silently, his face a mask of calm that belied the weight of his mission. Once the weapon was secured, he nodded to Ortega and Wren, a silent thank you, a silent farewell. As Davidson lifted off, the hum of the 302's engines filled the hangar bay, a chorus of defiance in the face of impending doom. He maneuvered the ship out of the station, the nuclear payload strapped firmly to his craft, his destination, the looming alien mothership. The final seconds of the time dilation effect were ebbing away, and with it, the eerie calm before the storm. Liam watched the 302 disappear into the distance, the sight of it a tiny beacon of hope against the darkness. His heart pounded in his chest as the seconds slipped away, each tick a reminder of their dwindling time. He could only hope now, hope that they had acted in time, hope that their desperate plan would work, and hope for a future beyond this moment. Liam continued to watch through the command station window, his eyes not on Davidson's departing ship, but on the seemingly static tableau of the space battle. The aliens' ships, once frozen in an otherworldly stillness, had started to twitch and tremor, the first harbingers of motion. It was a subtle shift, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable. The effect of the artifact was weakening. Time, the once generous ally, now turned into their fiercest adversary, its ceaseless ticking more chilling than any alien threat. Each tick echoed in Liam's mind, a relentless metronome marking the approach of reality's unwelcome return. He glanced over to Ortega, who was monitoring the battle through her console. Her face was pale in the glow of the screens, her eyes reflecting the eerie light as she witnessed the awakening of the alien fleet. She noticed the change, too. The frozen moment was fragmenting, and reality was beginning to thaw. "Davidson, you need to move! They're starting to react!" She relayed over the comms, her voice laced with urgency. There was no reply, just the low hum of the radio connection. Outside, the silence of the frozen battle was slowly giving way to the din of the impending war. The once still tableau was cracking, and a ripple of movement ran through the alien ships. Davidson was their last hope, a lone gambler making his bet against the universe's cruelest odds. And then everything was silent again. The seconds had run out. Only the echoes of Ortega's desperate plea to Davidson remained, a chilling reminder of the reality they were about to face. If you're new to this story, The Final Stand, check out the playlist in the description and start from part 1. Enjoy! As the frozen tableau of the outer space skirmish began to stir with a lethal slow-motion ballet, Liam realized the sheer enormity of their situation. The alien armada was inching forward, unfurling itself from the grip of the time dilation field. The threat, a moment ago silenced by his manipulation of time, was now reanimating itself into the cold vacuum of space. Heart pounding with an urgency that echoed in his ears, Liam turned his attention to Davidson, whose 302, now armed with the nuke, was an isolated spot of movement against the static field of stars and alien ships. The seasoned pilot was giving it his all, pushing the fighter jet to its limits, but even then it was clear they were running out of time. The mothership loomed large in the distance, but even at the 302's maximum speed, Davidson wouldn't make it in time. Liam's gaze shifted back to the artifact. Its glow seemed almost mocking in the face of their imminent failure. His father's words echoed in his mind, the acknowledgement of the alien artifact's power and their inability to harness it. A spark of an idea ignited in Liam's mind, its luminescence pushing back against the impending doom. He could control the artifact. He could control time. Could he not only freeze or unfreeze time, but manipulate it as well? The science was theoretically possible. The same way a gravity well around a massive object could bend time, he could create a time well around the 302, dilating time within its immediate field. He'd not only make the 302 move in the frozen reality, but move faster, covering more distance in less time. With newfound determination, he focused on the artifact, letting his mind meld with the complex patterns engraved into its surface. He visualized the 302, imagined the time bubble enveloping it, and then squeezed, compressing the time within. The room around him began to distort as he poured his concentration into the task. His perception of the world dimmed, his senses becoming numb, with only the glowing lines of the artifact occupying his vision. He could hear his own heartbeat, the rhythm increasing in pace as he strained against the artifact's resistance. Outside, Davidson's 302 began to glow with an otherworldly aura, its trajectory altering, curving toward the immense mothership. The 302's speed increased exponentially, becoming a shining comet burning through the space battlefield. Davidson's surprised exclamation crackled over the comms.
Command, something's happening. I'm accelerating.
On the command station, Ortega watched in awe as Davidson's 302 became a streak of light arcing towards the alien mothership. A small smile of hope tugged at her lips, her faith in their chances of survival flickering back to life. The air in the command center seemed to crackle with a newfound energy as the crew watched, their breaths held in anticipation, their eyes glued to the tiny blip on their screens representing Davidson's 302. Ortega's eyes darted back to the central monitor, and her heart thumped against her ribs as she noticed the enemy vessels creeping forward, breaking free of their suspended animation. The time dilation field was weakening, and they were coming back to life. "Davidson, hurry!" she urged into the comms, her voice crackling with intensity. "The field is breaking down!" Back in the tech room, Liam was at the edge of consciousness, the mental strain of manipulating the artifact taking its toll. Beads of sweat trickled down his forehead, his hands trembling as he pushed the artifact further, sustaining the time dilation effect around the 302. The soft glow from the artifact was now a blinding radiance that filled the room.
Command! I'm nearing the mothership!
Davidson's voice rang out over the comms, a mixture of apprehension and determination coloring his words. Despite the potential danger, his voice held an unshakable resolve, ready to see the mission through to its conclusion. As Liam released his control on the artifact, he slumped down onto the floor, exhausted. He managed a weak smile, a glimmer of triumph shining in his eyes. "You can do it, Davidson," he whispered, sending all his faith and hope barreling towards the brave pilot, towards the final frontier of their survival. As the world around him grew fuzzy, one thought anchored him to the reality of their situation. They had made it in time. They had a fighting chance. A newfound sense of hope surged through Ortega, an electric tingle that seemed to echo the energy radiating from the artifact. Her heart pounded with adrenaline as she watched the 302 streaking through the space, a solitary warrior charging towards the behemoth mothership. The palpable tension hung in the air of the command station like an electric charge before a thunderstorm. "Davidson, you're clear for approach. Do you have visual on the target?" she asked, her voice tight, vibrating with the gravity of the situation.
"Copy that, Commander. I see it,"
came Davidson's steady response. He sounded focused, all earlier apprehension replaced with a hardened resolve.
"Entering the alien mothership's field. Stand by."
In the tech room, Liam, barely clinging to consciousness, felt a warm hand on his shoulder. He blinked his eyes open to see Wren's worried face. The older man had left the nuclear preparation process to Ortega once he saw Liam's condition. "Liam, son, you need to stay with us," Wren urged, his usually stern features softened with concern. Pushing past the dizziness, Liam managed a weak nod. "Don't worry, Wren," he rasped out. "I'm not going anywhere." He tried to push himself to a sitting position, groaning as the room spun around him. Wren lent a supportive arm, helping him lean against the wall. In the void of space, Davidson's 302, engulfed in a radiant aura, entered the alien mothership's gravitational field. A colossal structure, the mothership dwarfed the 302, its foreboding silhouette a reminder of the gargantuan task that lay ahead. Davidson flew his 302 in a spiraling pattern, getting closer to the massive structure with each passing second. "Almost there," he muttered to himself, his gaze trained on the large opening that loomed ahead. It was a suicide mission, but if it meant saving humanity, he was ready to pay the price. Back in the tech room, Liam was now more alert. His pulse still raced, matching the anxious rhythm of the countdown towards the crucial moment. His gaze was fixated on the monitor displaying Davidson's progress. His breath hitched as the 302 neared the entrance of the mothership, the small craft dwarfed by the enormous alien structure. He could hear Davidson's steady breaths over the comms, the pilot's calm voice a stark contrast to the tense anticipation that held everyone captive.
"Davidson to command. I'm at the target location. Arming the payload,"
Davidson reported, his voice firm. And then, after a pause, he added,
"It's been an honor serving with you all."
The solemnity of his words hung heavy in the air. The gravity of the moment was upon them. They were on the precipice of something monumental, either their most significant victory or the onset of their end. Their future hinged on the impending climax, the tension escalating to an almost unbearable level. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the moment that would decide their fate. The eerie silence that hung over the command station was punctuated only by the soft humming of the systems and the echo of Davidson's words. The words seemed to reverberate in the hearts of everyone present, an indelible mark of their shared struggle. The weight of the moment was colossal, bearing down on them like the crushing pressure of the deep sea. "Godspeed, Davidson," Ortega managed to say, her voice choked with emotion. Her gaze remained fixed on the monitor, the image of the 302 about to infiltrate the alien mothership branded into her retinas. In the tech room, Liam's hand instinctively curled around the artifact, the object humming softly in resonance with his heightened emotions. His heart pounded heavily in his chest, every thump resonating with the beats of the ticking countdown. He had done everything he could. Davidson's fate was no longer in his hands. "Ortega to Davidson, you're cleared to engage," Ortega said, her voice barely more than a whisper, her throat dry and her lips parched. With those words, Davidson maneuvered the 302 towards the alien mothership, a direct course towards the pulsating core. The ship was a minuscule speck against the backdrop of the alien behemoth. Davidson braced himself for the impact, his gloved hands gripping the controls tightly, his eyes reflecting the alien glow that engulfed the cockpit. A strange calm washed over Davidson as he breached the mothership's outer shell, his focus narrowing onto the pulsating core. His breaths were measured, the rhythmic inhalations and exhalations grounding him in the present moment. He could see it now, the alien core, a grotesque pulsating mass of extraterrestrial technology. "Payload is away," he announced, pushing the button to release the nuclear warhead. In the command station, Ortega's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the screen, showing the 302 making its desperate escape from the mothership. The seconds seemed to stretch into an agonizing eternity as they waited for the nuclear detonation. Then, with a blinding flash of light, the mothership erupted from within. A shock wave of energy burst outwards, illuminating the dark expanse of space with a cataclysmic explosion. A ripple of energy surged through the battlefield, sending alien drones spiraling out of control, their connection to the mothership severed. Ortega let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "It worked," she whispered, disbelief tinging her voice. Her heart swelled with a rush of euphoria, relief, and grief, a torrent of emotions that left her momentarily breathless. In the tech room, Liam could only stare at the monitor in awe. They had done it. They had stopped the alien invasion. But the victory was not without its cost. Davidson's 302 was nowhere to be seen, and his heart sank at the realization. His father's voice came through the comms, choked with emotion.
"You did it, son! You've saved us all!"
Tears welled up in Liam's eyes, blurring his vision. "We did it, Dad! We did it!" As relief washed over them, there was a shared sense of triumph. But it was tempered by the sacrifice they had witnessed. Their victory was hard-fought and dearly won. It was a moment of profound realization, a reaffirmation of their resilience and their ability to face impossible odds. The command station was awash with a mix of joy, sorrow, and relief, a testament to their shared struggle and the sacrifices made. In the face of an alien threat, they had stood their ground and emerged victorious. The fight was over, at least for now. They had earned a respite, but the cost of their victory would not be forgotten. In the quiet aftermath of their victory, the space surrounding the command station bore the scars of their desperate battle. The remnants of alien drones floated aimlessly, rendered useless by the destruction of their mothership. The once looming threat was now a distant memory, a surreal dream that had briefly morphed into a chilling reality. Back at the station, a somber mood had taken hold. The weight of their victory, tinged with the sacrifice they had witnessed, hung heavily in the air. Davidson's bravery and sacrifice had been instrumental in their triumph, a fact that was not lost on anyone. His heroism would forever be etched in their hearts, his name whispered with reverence and respect. The artifact, now lying dormant, was carefully secured by Wren and Ortega, its potential for good and destruction still an enigma. The alien technology that had threatened to bring about the end had also been their salvation. It had been an unlikely ally in their desperate struggle, a reminder of the paradoxes that often marked their existence. In the tech room, Liam stared out into the expanse of space, his mind filled with a whirlwind of emotions. A profound sense of relief washed over him, mingled with a lingering sorrow for Davidson's loss. He had stepped into his father's footsteps, becoming the unexpected hero of a battle they had barely understood. He was no longer the unsure young man who had first set foot in the command center. He had grown, hardened by the trials he had faced. His father's voice came over the comms, breaking him out of his reverie.
"Son, we have a lot to discuss. There's a world out there that needs to understand what we faced here."
Liam nodded, turning his gaze from the stars to the artifact. "I know, Dad. We'll tell our story, for Davidson, for us, and for everyone who needs to know the truth." As the command station embarked on its journey back to Earth, the battle-weary crew began to settle into the quiet calm that followed the storm. Their journey had been marked by trials and triumphs, proof of human resilience and the power of unity in the face of adversity. The saga of their struggle would serve as a beacon of hope, a reminder of what humanity was capable of when pushed to its limits. But for now, they would rest, heal, and prepare for the next challenge, always vigilant, always ready. For in the vast expanse of the universe, they knew that this victory was but a single battle in an ongoing war for survival. If you've enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments and subscribe for the next one.